Hey folks, how's it going? My name is Lexi and I really like tabletop games. So much so that we get together once a week every week and we review one here on the gaming table. If that sounds interesting to you, I encourage you to press subscribe and keep watching today's video. The game I'm reviewing has had a few additions previously. I will admit though, I don't have any prior experience with the game, so hopefully I can take a look at it with some fresh eyes. This is Cyberpunk Red. The first edition of Cyberpunk debuted in 1988 amid the late 20th century technology boom. The first edition had the dystopian future set in 2013. This edition has updated that to be 2045. I do find it fun that if we have a dystopian future franchise, we'll sometimes have to move the timeline of the dystopian future to further in our future. In the current timeline, the world is recovering from a war between megacorporations. This war culminated with a small nuclear bomb being set off in the middle of Night City. This, of course, all happened due to the rise of technology, climate catastrophes, and the breakdown of government. 2045 is a time of rebuilding, with lots of smaller corporations desperate to take up the spot that the megacorporations once had. There are other cities and settlements in the world. This manual just happens to focus on one on the west coast of the United States. It does sort of feel like the end of the world when you're reading it though. Venturing outside of the city is fraught with danger, thanks to those climate catastrophes. In some ways, the bomb being set off reset the timeline. Non-player characters and important locations from previous pieces of cyberpunk media do appear in the manual, and I did find these a little bit confusing. I wasn't sure why I was supposed to be excited to see this character. I just happened to be unfamiliar with the world. There's a lot of setting content in this game manual. I'll admit I found it intimidating to read. I think if you wanted to play a character that was familiar or confident in Night City, you would have a fair amount of reading ahead of you. I would recommend, if you're planning to run the game, to take the manual and make some notes about different things you might want to spotlight from different areas of the game. Cyberpunk runs on a version of the interlock system. It's not a system I think I've encountered off the top of my head before. To do things in this game, you roll a d10 and then you apply a relevant modifier, which might come from one or two of your stats. Your character stats in this game are intelligence, reflexes, dexterity, tech, cool, will, luck, body, and empathy. So, depending on what you want to do, you'll roll a d10 and add up to 2 stats. Say you rolled a d10, you got a result of an 8, but the stats you were adding had a total score of 3 and 7, so that would mean your 8 would become an 18. There are some ways that your characters can improve or change how the die roll works. Perhaps they have a cool piece of equipment, like a gun that allows them to attack multiple times in a round of combat, or alternatively they might have a special ability to change the results on the die. Characters in this game can engage in netrunning. This is where characters plug themselves into a virtual landscape. You could definitely find useful things like information, but it tends to be fraught with danger. Anyone net running needs to keep very alert and use their skills to get what they want without getting in trouble. It's a little bit hard for me to explain, but it's kind of like solving multiple puzzles in a row. I do really love that character creation in this game is guided by this flowchart across the pages. It helps guide your eye on where to look next and how to prioritize information. This character creation process not only fulfills what numbers are on your sheet, but it also talks about and discusses their backstory and why your character is the way they are. I did find that flowchart really helped me understand the end result of the character sheet better. When I initially looked at the character sheet, I did feel a bit overwhelmed by all of those boxes. I do really appreciate that the manual gives you a lot of options for pre-generated scores or equipment for your player character. It certainly makes it a lot easier than doing everything from scratch. I think the core concept of rolling a d10 and then adding a modifier to the result is pretty straightforward. It just so happens that there are other things happening within the game that make that a bit more complicated. The options to have more mechanical complexity in this game definitely put this one in the more crunchier side of gaming for me. This is a pretty dense manual. I'll admit I struggled to navigate it at times. There's a lot of lore to be caught up on. I did like some of the details of the setting. The west coast of the United States feels like the end of the world, and the descriptions of the environmental disasters sprawling out from the city are really interesting. It just so happens that there is so much of it. It's not exactly easy to wade through and to know what you should know to get started. I have no prior experience with Cyberpunk, so I'm not sure if this edition is beloved by Cyberpunk fans, or if there are things they wish that were included or left out. I think if you love the genre in general of Cyberpunk, you should check out this game. It's been around for a while for a reason. Even if I don't get an opportunity to sit down and play a long game of Cyberpunk, I'm glad I got the opportunity to at least take a look at the manual. A copy of Cyberpunk Red retails for around $50 US. I happened to be able to borrow a copy from a friend for the review, which I'm pretty grateful for. I'm not sure if Cyberpunk Red is quite my cup of tea. I don't tend to adore cyberpunk settings in general, so it could just be a personal preference of mine. I do think with the price it would be worthwhile to see if you can flip through a friend's copy, or even if your local game supply store has a little lending library where you could flip through or read a bit of the manual before you go ahead and purchase it. I'm definitely impressed with the art of the manual. It gives that feeling of a neon lit future tinged in despair. It just happens for me that I don't know if it was organised in such a way that it was the easiest for me to jump in. But what did you think of Cyberpunk Red? Have you played any Cyberpunk games? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Is it just me who finds the amount of lore dense and scary? While you're there, I encourage you to like this video, and perhaps you could share it with someone who knows a lot about Cyberpunk. Or if they're just interested in the game, I'd love to hear their thoughts. If you want to see more from me, you can press subscribe and turn on notifications so YouTube will tell you when I've next uploaded. I do also have in my description box a link to my Ko-Fi page where you can donate to the channel. All donations to the channel go directly back into running the channel. I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you're all well, and I'll see you next time at the gaming table. Bye!